Hello, family. Our movie begins with a young child named Rick discovering his mother, Lucy, unconscious on the couch. Rick's mother, Lucy, had attempted suicide, and several letters were lying in front of him. Rick admits him to the hospital immediately after observing his condition. Then Rick discovers Lucy's most recent writing, in which Lucy learns about her best friend, Miss Bender, and Rick's affair. Perhaps this is why Lucy attempted suicide. Then Rick tells us how it all began, and we see Rick's flashback. Rick's mother, Lucy, is an alcoholic who is unconcerned about her children, and she often mentions being divorced from Rick's father. Rick works in the club with his sister Kristen. Then we see Rick's father, Joseph, and they both ignore his children and leave while they are out of the house. With all of this, we also learn that Rick has a crush on a girl in his class named Mina, but he hasn't even spoken to Mina yet. Rick then goes to see Jimmy. Jimmy owns the strip club, and Rick's sister, Kristen, also works there. Then Jimmy instructs Rick to summon one of his dancers. Rick visits the dancer's home, but she declines to attend the strip club, so she begins to seduce Rick. Rick then goes to his friend Billy's residence. Miss Bender, Billy's mother, is also present. Ms. Bender then sends Billy out to get some items. When Rick was alone in the house, it began to get closer to him. Following that, their affair begins from here. So the next day at school, Billy and Rick discuss proposing to Nina. When Carlos arrives, he makes a wager with Rick that if he makes Nina his girlfriend, he will give him $1,000, but Rick was unable to make Nina his girlfriend. As a result, Rick must pay him $1,000. Hearing this, Rick agrees to the bet, but it soon becomes clear that Carlos is the son of a gangster, and if he is unable to give him the money, he will kill him. Rick notices Lola in the restroom, who is an imagined companion of the teenagers here. Lola encourages Rick to impress Nina and win her heart. Then Rick discovers Nina's separation from her boyfriend Kevin, and knowing this, he begins to believe he can make Nina his girlfriend. And when his teacher was educating him in the classroom, he died unexpectedly, causing the students to be excused. Then, on his way out of school, Rick approaches Nina and begs her to accompany him to the teacher's burial. Then Kevin arrives, and Nina agrees to accompany Rick to the teacher's burial in front of Kevin. The next day, he attends the teacher's funeral, and those folks were in Rick's mother's car. Nina then informs Rick that she likes Josh Garvin's music. When Rick hears this, he tells her that he knows Josh Garvin personally and that he is going to his show tomorrow. Nina is overjoyed when she hears this and she invites him to accompany her to the concert. So Rick responds, yes. During this time, someone smashes his car from behind, and Rick discovers on his way out that the father of the church has hit him. The father then apologizes to Rick and instructs him to have his car repaired immediately because Rick has agreed to escort Nina to the concert. So he goes to Jimmy and asks him to buy him concert tickets. As a result, Jimmy offers to assist him. But first, Jimmy assigns Rick the responsibility of obtaining the narcotic from his dealer. Rick then goes to get the drug and keeps some with him. Rick now requests Ms. Bender's car in order to get to the concert, and Ms. Bender agrees to give him the car. Ms. Bender asks Rick to bring Billy with him the next day when he arrives to pick up the car. Then Rick and Billy come to Jimmy to buy concert tickets. However, they discover that Jimmy has deceived them by failing to purchase performance tickets. Furthermore, they were both thinking that Nina would arrive only then. Then Billy notices Rick's father's car. When they go inside, they see Rick's and Billy's fathers with a female. Now, Rick would apologize to Nina because he couldn't take her to the concert. Nina, too, forgives him. The following day, when they go to school, a new teacher arrives to educate them. However, this teacher likewise perishes while teaching when Rick arrives at the house after that. Then he receives a call from the mechanic who is repairing his mother's car, who informs Rick that it would take another week to repair his vehicle. As a result, he allows Rick to drive a very costly car for a while. Rick is overjoyed with the car and has a great time with Billy and Nina, but he is apprehended by the police that night. Actually, the cops had apprehended Rick after discovering the mechanic's dead body in Rick's mother's car, and because Rick was driving the mechanic's car, the police assumed Rick had murdered him. Rick is being questioned here, so Rick tells the cops that he went to that mechanic to have the car serviced per the church's request father. Meanwhile, a lawyer arrives, sent by the church's father to assist Rick, and at his request, Rick blames his father entirely. The cops then abandon him. Then, as Rick was about to drop the lawyer home, the lawyer accidentally consumes Rick's drugs, and after getting drunk, she begins approaching Rick, but because Rick had fallen in love with Nina, that's why he abandons the lawyer and comes to his residence. When he returns home, he discovers that his sister Kristen has brought a number of her stripper friends to the house. When Rick notices this, he has an idea and tells Billy that we will open a strip club here for one night in order to generate $1,000 to give to Carlos. Rick was doing this since he expected to lose the bet. Then Rick informs Kristen and everyone else about it, and they all agree. Billy then calls his mother, Ms. Bender, but the trouble is, Rick doesn't like it. When Ms. Bender tries to violently seduce Rick, Billy walks away. Rick, on the other hand, is avoiding them. After a while, Billy returns and notices his mother doing unusual things. However, Rick instructs Billy to take his mother to another room. Following that, Rick invites Jimmy to the party so he can deal with Billy's mother. The party will then commence. Billy and Rick begin to make a lot of money. After a while, Jimmy appears, and Rick directs him to Ms. Bender. Nina also shows up there, and she came because she was concerned about Rick and the police investigation. Rick then brings Nina to his room, where they both get close and prepare to kiss her. But Ms. Bender shows up there when Ms. Bender was speaking with Rick. When Nina discovers Rick is having an affair with Ms. Bender, she becomes enraged and begins to flee the scene. Witnessing her leave, Rick tries to persuade her, but Nina discovers that Rick met Carlos in order to impress her, which makes her even angrier. Meanwhile, the cops arrive since he opened the strip club without a license, except for Rick. Everyone is arrested here. Nina has been arrested with all of this, which makes him feel terrible. The next day, Rick travels to the police station to meet everyone, where he discovers Nina has fallen in love with him as well. But now, after what happened, she doesn't want to see his face. Rick then receives a phone call from his father when he returns home. He got into a lot of problems as a result of Rick taking his name at the police station. So everything up until this point in the movie was a flashback. And now we'll go on to the next narrative. Rick is now in trouble from all sides, so he goes to confession at the church. He tells his father about his affair with Ms. Bender there. As a result, father begins to confront him because he was also having an affair with Ms. Bender. After all of this, Rick goes to Ms. Bender and orders him to terminate his affair for good. When Rick was chatting with his mother, he went to the hospital to see her. Rick's mother notices that he is distressed, so she tells Rick that you need to rectify everything and accept his error. Rick becomes motivated after hearing all of this, but Carlos apprehends him because Rick hasn't yet handed him the money. Carlos then proceeds to bite Rick's fingers, which causes Rick to become quite anxious. Carlos, on the other hand, laughs and tells Rick he was only kidding. Rick is then abandoned by Carlos. Rick then walks to the lawyer and addresses her as such. He needs her assistance to get his friend released from jail. Now, because Rick lacked the funds to pay the lawyer's expenses. As a result, the lawyer engages him on a part-time basis. The lawyer then goes to the police station and obtains the release of Rick's friend. After that, Rick travels to the hospital to see his mother, where we learn that Nina works part-time there. Then Rick goes to his mother and offers her divorce papers so that his mother can divorce his father. Nina then arrives to greet Rick as he leaves the hospital. Rick apologizes to her first and then tells her what's on his mind. Nina has grown to like Rick and accepts his proposal. Then they both kiss. This is how the movie ends. Tell us in a comment, how did you find this movie? See you in the next video. We hope that you enjoy your time and have a good day.